Let me start with something a little personal. When I decided to homeschool, it wasn't just about academics. It was really about trust. Trust that my kids could learn at their own rhythm, that success didn't need to be defined by scores, tests, or perfect handwriting, and that curiosity was enough, and that they were enough. But in making that choice, I realized I had a lot to unlearn, not just as a parent, but as an artist too. Because trust isn't something you give others, it's something you learn to give yourself. Now, I want you to ask yourself, do you remember when you were a child, just painting just what you see when color came out, when you didn't preview the result before making a mark? Just like you watching all of this footage of my kids just freely creating and watching their curiosity blossom, the fact that so many of the time after they have created, they no longer form any attachment to the final outcome, but in fact, the joy that they are actually experiencing is from the creation itself and not from the outcome. Because that's what trust looks like. It's not loud or dramatic. In fact, it's quiet and it's a way of letting a mistake stay. At some point, we started asking, is this good enough? Is this worth sharing? I lost trust in my own work when I started outsourcing all my decisions. When I started collecting tutorials, hoarding classes, saving color palettes, Pinterest pins, and even hoarding numerous numbers of brushes and paints. Somewhere between all the how-to videos, the endless scrolling, I started to believe that if something was not good, it wasn't worth doing. And that's what schools tend to teach. It's what critique culture reinforces. And it's also what social media seems to echo over and over again. We start to learn that painting only matters when the outcome is impressive and not when the process is intuitive. Now, today, I want to tell you something really important. I believe that our trust wasn't lost. In fact, it was interrupted and we can get it back. So how is it that kids have this innate ability to just trust whatever that is happening, and somehow a part of us no longer have that as adults? Now, I want to walk you through a sketchbook that I had recently finished. It's a pretty big one. So this one here is by Saunders Waterford. Quite a number of people have been asking me about this sketchbook. It's essentially just paper that has been binded by Holbein. Got it in Japan. And you know, when I started this sketchbook, I think one of the things that I wanted to do initially was I told myself that I wanted to sit down and do floral studies, and I wanted to pay attention to shadow. I wanted to start thinking about light pockets, and I wanted to kind of like break down and simplify floral shapes. And this was me building trust in myself to see the flowers as they were and not from someone else. I was trying to trust my ability to replicate and to kind of find ways in which I would paint specific subjects, right? And in this process, I was also, experimenting with different mediums. This was with color pencils. And then I also had wet in wet, where this one was really nice and soft. So let me just bring you over so you can see the different effects. And this was also the time where I was deeply struggling with roses. And I've done an episode where I've spoken about it, and I think I wanted to break past it. And I was hoping that this was going to be the sketchbook that was going to help me with that. So speaking of helping me with that, I started to, do a couple more roses. And again, this was really just focusing on listening to myself and what I was seeing. When I started to create my own roses, create my own variations, and I started to see that we don't have to paint roses in one direction, right? We could paint them in all kinds of directions, and I think that was where I really leaned into the idea of understanding so much better in terms of the types of roses that I wanted to create, how I was going to lean into white spaces, maybe injecting color, and then after that really going into not just roses but seeing how to simplify it further where we've got petals peeling back. And what I was doing here was I was actually showcasing the ability where I wanted to just start focusing on my own ideas and a lot less on what I had seen on tutorials before. Now, if you think about it, this means that I was essentially unlearning so many of the things that I had held on to. I'm not saying that the things that I learned in YouTube and the tutorials were bad, but I think that what it created was this dilution. I ended up feeling like I was not as capable as I thought I was. I kind of gave my confidence away and I gave the trust in myself away as well. I think another school-related idea is also the thing about how we feel like if it's not good, it is not worth it. And this is such a common thing that we tend to tell ourselves. It's almost like we feel this need to have to create something good enough before we actually acknowledge and recognize it. But then we all know that learning is not something that happens right away. Learning is a pathway, it's a process, and it's a way of being. Sometimes it's also being able to be open and curious. It's about embodying all of these different qualities of a learner so that we will absorb and take whatever that comes in, and trusting myself that I know when exactly I want to let go and when exactly I want to pull back. These are really things that we need to start asking ourselves when we are creating our art in order to build our trust again. Asking yourself, what do you want? Start being really curious and going, I wonder what if, and also finding out what felt good. Now, speaking of the exploration that I did, this was another one that I had done where similarly I also not spray painted, but I used my spray bottle and kind of sprayed all around. I had a lot of fun with this. I also added in splatter. I wanted to play with more movement, and you can actually see some of the bleeds and blends here. And yes, I used a reference photo as well. So while you're watching and looking at my sketchbook practice, and you're also beginning to think that, wow, Jillian, all of your pieces of art in your sketchbook are absolutely beautiful. But this is where there is another thing around trust that is important. Now, the moment you get into stage 3, trust becomes about restraint. You want to kind of stop yourself and have that ability to know when to stop, because we can't fill up the spaces. In fact, we start to see and plan how we want to use space. I love this one here because this one was done together with Brush Movement Collective. There was a member who actually asked about creating a floral bouquet. And for this particular floral bouquet, the fun thing was that, it was such that it was captured with a person holding it, the bouquet against the sky, and it looked really overwhelming because there were just so many bursts of colorful flowers. And the trust in restraint here is really thinking about trusting that you don't have to prove to the viewer that you need to paint every single part. And this here becomes a trust not just only in your skills, but also in your instinct. And I think it's also important to embrace the ability to just go where you are at instead of having to feel like you need to progress. And this here, friends, is really also the whole point of learning that we've been talking about. Learning is not going to always be progressive. You're going to have days where it's up and it's down. There are days on my sketchbook painting that, yes, I feel like I want to add more details. And then there are days that I want to just go looser and I just want to play with color and have fun. So go with whatever mood you are facing as well. This one here has a story to tell. I wanted it to be super wet. I wanted to have like lots of bleeds and blends. And I was trying to create a flower field. And instead of flower field, I had like a bunch of onions. I'm sure that has happened to you before, you know, where the bloom just goes out of control and it's just like a giant ball of onion. And then I realized that I had to make my flowers a lot bigger than I wanted to. And it was so uncomfortable because I did not want to have to add so much detail to it. Because, you know, with this one here, I had already played with so much detail. And then I was just really craving for something that was a lot lighter and a lot more, you know, wet. But yeah, things don't go our way. And what I did was that I trusted myself to do what I could with whatever was in front of me. Because that's the thing about painting. It's really problem solving. You are kind of asking yourself, what's next? What do I know? And what can I do? And if I don't know what to do, then is there something else I could use to improvise? Could I use watercolor pencils? Could I layer with gouache? Could I cut this up and make it into a collage? And you know, with all of these different creative ideas that you have, which again is unique to you, and if you trust what you are able to do, then there is so much potential. And then over here was one that I did with Aurelia during one of our live sessions. And the funny thing was that it had started off a lot lighter and then I ended up doing so much negative painting here. I wasn't sure about it at the end, but you know, every painting has a story, and I think the more we stay with it as being a story, the more personal your artwork becomes, the more you would give yourself permission to trust in what you know and what you can do. And I ended off my journal with this very painting here. I love the colors here, the movement, and what I was trying to replicate was this piece here. You know, I just love these ones where I had done with the leaves that are moving around, and I kind of wanted to have the same feeling. So this was what I did, but in terms of movement, no, it didn't cut it, but the color choice was dreams. It's what I love. So I hope that this sketchbook tour and our little conversation about trust has given you the ability to start thinking about your own practice, what you have been doing, and what you need. I think that trust is really about building a relationship, not just with your supplies, but also with ourselves. The way in which we are open, curious, and allowing ourselves to take leaps, to take chances, or to even decide that we don't want to make anything meaningful today. It does not have to be about creating a masterpiece, and I think rebuilding trust also takes time. So maybe at the end of this video, you are starting to have some serious questions go through your head. I just want you to know that your trust is not lost. In fact, there could be a reason why it has gone a little quieter, and now what you need to do is really tap into it and try and bring it back out again, slowly, one bit at a time. The more you put pen to paper, the more you are fearless and not afraid of doing things, the more you can start to see your own potential and what you are able to do. Remember, this is not about rebuilding your trust with better paintings or better skills or more supplies. It's about rebuilding it by just simply showing up, especially when it's super unclear. And then you're gonna see that what you're painting for is not proof, but with trust. Now before you go, I wanna let you know that I've got a free artist hub for artists to help artists to learn what stage they are in inside of their own watercolor experience. This allows them to understand what are the steps that they can take at the stage they are in. I also believe that this is also a confidence builder, and sometimes with the clarity of knowing what your next step is, it is also going to be a little bit easier to take steps to trust yourself. So if you feel like this is the hub that you want to check out, find out what your stage is, get resources that are pegged at your level, I would love for you to click on the link below. And until then, before we wrap up this amazing video, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you enjoyed this little sketchbook tour that I had prepared, and hopefully you also get to see that your own journey is unique to you as long as you allow your voice to resurface again.